Okay, students, I'm going to go over the neuron and neuromuscular junction worksheet with you. I handed these out, but it's also on the classwork section of Google Classroom. And there's other pages, but we're only going to do the first page today. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to label all of the parts. The cell body, that's the main part of, happens to be a motor neuron. The main part is the cell body. And so that is letter A. It's pointing to this. This is different. B is nucleus. The nucleus of a cell is that central part containing the DNA. So obviously that's the nucleus. Okay. This next little line is pointing to this long strand that's coming out. And if you watch the video, you know that is a nerve fiber or an axon. So the axon answer is letter D. All of these things right here, these are the little branches that bring in stimulus to the neuron. And so the things that bring it in, and that means branch in Greek, is dendrites. Dendra means branch. Okay, so now we have some things that can be a little confusing because it's pointing to a lot of different stuff. You've got this that's pointing to this region right here. This is pointing to the space. This should be a space in between these. This is pointing to the dot right here. And this is pointing to the dark layer in between. So this is referring to this entire unit right here. Each one of these units is a separate cell called a Schwann cell. So that should be H. Between Schwann cells, there's a little blank, or if you zoomed in, there would be a little microscopic space between these, and that's called the node of Rambier. Okay? When we look at these Schwann cells, this is a dot. That dot is comparable to this circle that's in this cell. And so that is the Schwann cell nucleus. What this line is pointing to is all this dark material. So the dark material is what is made by the Schwann cells. And what is made by the Schwann cells is a fatty substance called myelin. Okay, it's a fatty substance called myelin. So we're going to call that when we collectively call all that myelin, the myelin sheath. Okay? And then the only things that we have left are the terminal branches and the synaptic knobs. So the branches are going to be here. And the knobs, a synapse is where a neuron meets another neuron, or it meets a muscle. So it's at the very, very end. And so that's the synaptic knob. So those are the correct answers that you should have. Eventually, this picture will be on your test. So now we're going to fill in the paragraph. These are specialized for the transmission of nerve impulses. I'm looking for the name of the cell. The name of the cell that conducts impulses is called a neuron. It is not a nerve. A nerve is actually a bundle of neurons. A single cell is a neuron. Okay, so we're going to say neuron because that's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about nerves. Nerves would be a whole bunch of these grouped together. The nucleus is located in the blank. Well, here's the nucleus. So what is this whole part? That is called the cell body. Okay, from the cell body, two types of structures carry out transmission functions. Transmission means sending. Blank transmit nerve impulses from other cells or sensory systems, and blank provide for the transmission of nerve impulses away from the cell body. Electricity or impulses only travel in one direction. They go in here and then out. They never go in the reverse. So those that receive are called dendrites. And then those that go away from the cell body, that's called an axon. And I told you in one of the videos that we're going to use axon multiple times. A single neuron cell can be over a meter long. Due to the length of this can differ. So it's the length of its axon. Okay? Blank are the supporting cells associated with axons. It's these things. And we've already identified those as Schwann cells. They form a blank around many vertebrate neurons. That thing that they're forming is called the myelin sheath. Blank interrupt the myelin sheath where the axon is in direct contact with surrounding intercellular fluid. That would be in these little gaps in between. If we zoomed in, this would be not covered. I wish they would kind of make these a little bit smaller so you could actually see the gap, kind of like I drew when I made that video for you guys. There's a gap between them, okay? And that gap is called a node of Ranvier. Okay, the junction, that means where they meet between a neuron and a muscle, is called a blank junction. Well, hey, there's a little hint down here. Where a neuron meets a muscle is called a neuromuscular junction. Okay. Blank is the neurotransmitter in your notes. It talks about it, but if we keep reading, it will give it away. At a neuromuscular junction, acetylcholine is released from a blank. So, acetylcholine, and we're going to abbreviate that like this. Acetylcholine is the neurotransmitter in this particular case. Different neurons have different neurotransmitters. Acetylcholine is released from a what? It's going to be released from this, okay, which is the end here, which is called a synaptic knob. Okay, so now we're going to label the parts of a neuromuscular junction. So this is the neuron, this is the muscle. So the muscle fiber is D, okay. So you have axon, cleft is a gap or a space, okay. So if somebody has cleft palate, they actually have the top of their mouth isn't fused. There's a big hole there. So the gap is the cleft right here. It's the space between them. So that is the synaptic cleft. You have something that's called acetylcholine sacs. This is a sac or a membrane that surrounds the chemical, which is acetylcholine. They're showing the little chemical here, and so the sac around it, that is the acetylcholine sac. And so now we're left with axon and synaptic knob. Well, this kind of forms a knob. It kind of looks like a doorknob sideways or upside down. So that is the synaptic knob. And then the axon is this fiber right here. So those are your answers for that. You've got the axon, you've got the acetylcholine sac, you've got the synaptic knob, you have the cleft, and you have the muscle fiber. So make sure you have all these answers correct, and then you're going to put that in the classwork section of your binder. Okay, make sure you do that.